very important event. Faith and community leaders have come together once again to give our community the opportunity to hear from some of the candidates that are on your ballot. Now, before we begin tonight's forum, let me remind the audience that early voting, it is of course already underway. You can vote any day between now and this Sunday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at the designated early voting sites. If you choose to vote on Election Day, which is this Tuesday, November 8th, be reminded that you must and can only vote at your designated precinct, which may have changed since the last time you voted. But to be sure, you need to go to the Supervisor of Elections website. That website is DuvalElections.com. All right, for tonight's debate, invitations were extended, as Pastor McKee mentioned, to the two candidates in each of the following races. We've got Duval County Sheriff, Congressional District 4, and City Council District 7, and we are happy to welcome City Council candidate for District 7, Mr. Charles Barr. And the candidate for Sheriff, Lakeisha Burton. And she snuck in on us, but we're so glad to have you, Miss Holloway, who is running for Congress. So let's welcome her as well. So glad to have everybody. All right, we welcome this in-person audience as well as the virtual audience as we stream this forum throughout Duval County and beyond. This forum has been carefully planned and will proceed utilizing the following format and rules, and I ask that the candidates listen very closely. So we've changed up a little bit since our number is smaller. We've changed a few things. The first one being, in a few minutes, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves and talk about their campaign platform. When a candidate has 15 seconds remaining, a yellow indicator will be raised. When 3 minutes have expired, a red indicator will be raised. At that time, we ask that you complete your final sentence so that we can proceed to the next candidate introduction. After the completion of introductions, I will ask the questions. The first group of questions were prepared and given to each of you in advance. After completing the prepared questions, we will then ask questions that will come in the form of from our in-person or virtual audience. And I'll get to in a moment how we're going to make that happen. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the question. To keep track of time, we have designated timekeepers seated on the front row. And again, when a candidate has 15 seconds remaining, a yellow indicator will be raised. When 2 minutes are up, a red indicator will be raised. And at that time, we ask that you again complete your final sentence so that we can proceed. If someone from our in-person or virtual audience would like to ask a question, all those questions will be vetted for appropriateness, and due to time limits, we may not be able to get to them all. After we complete all of the questions and the answers, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give closing remarks following the same time parameters and instructions previously given. Now, to our audience, each of you have been given a card with a QR code, so you are to scan that code if you would like to ask a question, and someone will bring that question to me. And also for the online audience, the website that we are streaming on is the it is not the oak.org. You didn't get a card. Okay. All right, hang on 1 second. Can we get cards for everybody? Okay, they're going to pass those out. Thank you for letting me know. Good looking out. Okay. So for the online audience, the website is theoak.org, and the link for you to tap into that QR code is going to be on the platform. So they're streaming at the oat.org, also on their Facebook and YouTube pages. The links will be there, and online audience, you will have the opportunity to ask questions as well using that link. So we'll give a moment for them to pass out the QR codes. Oh, and you know what? That reminds me, I heard somebody's phone, so let's put our phones on silent. Let me make sure mine is. All right, anybody else need a card with the QR code? Okay, all right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Let me put these glasses back on. All right, let's begin with the introductions. Candidates are reminded that you have up to 3 minutes, and we will begin with Ms. Holloway.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone. My name is LaShonda L.J. Holloway, and I'm the candidate to represent the people of the newly drawn 4th Congressional District. I am a 4th-generation Jacksonvillian, but more importantly, I have depth and breadth of federal experience. I not only worked on Capitol Hill for Congresswoman Carrie Meek, I also worked at the United States Environmental Protection Agency and negotiated the largest deal in history at United States Customs. I am a lover of people, and I am running to represent the people of the newly drawn 4th Congressional District. I currently serve on the board of the James Weldon Johnson branch of the YMCA. I have served in the past on the Florida Bar Unlicensed Practice of Law group for the State Board of Bar Examiners. I also am the author of several publications, among them Elections and Ethics. Again, my name is LaShonda L.J. Holloway. Good evening.
All right, thank you so much. All right, City Council Candidate District 7, Mr. Charles Barr.
Good evening. I'm Charles Barr. I'm City Council District 7. I failed to do this last week, so I'm going to remember this time. I want to thank you guys for allowing me here. Pastor McKee, thank you. The Church of Oakland, thank you very much for letting us be here tonight. Also, I'd like to just take a second and acknowledge we have a sitting City Council person. Mr. Kobe Pittman just walked in, and it's an honor to have a council person at one of these, and I just want to say good evening, ma'am. I'm running for this district because I want to see some change. Like I said last week, I want to see some monies put in our district. I want to see these food deserts go away. I want to see the folks here on the east side and on the north side of Jacksonville get what we deserve. I think we've been neglected long enough. I think that there's a lot of stuff goes on the other side, right over there by the stadium and stuff, and not over here, and I think it's time that happens. So I look forward to working for you. I believe that having meetings and talking to folks and picking their brain. I was talking to, I forgot where it was, outside earlier, and I can't wait to meet with people and get your ideas. I don't know everything that needs to go on in every part of our district because it's huge. It goes from the river to the county line right now. And I don't know everything that needs to be done, but I know that working with the pastors and working with the community leaders, I can learn and we can get something done. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And again, I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be here tonight. And thank you.
Ms. Burton. Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the pastor for opening up your church. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm in the right place. They say the church is the hospital, so I'm in the right place. I wanted to do something a little different. We're 5 days out, and we have about 12% of Democrats that are undecided. So I wanted to make sure I maximize my time and get everything I wanted to say. So in just 5 days, you will vote on a new leader for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. You all get to choose the type and style of leader you want to serve you in our city. For the past few months now, you all have gotten to see the type and style of leader you get to choose from. If you can hear, you have heard the difference. If you can see, you have seen the difference. If you can feel, you have felt the difference. For the 12% of undecided registered Democrats here are some important considerations for the choice you have in the candidates on the ballot. There is the candidate who has publicly and courageously told her personal life story of redemption, resiliency, and opportunity, overcoming the unthinkable, childhood sex abuse, teen pregnancy, drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, hopelessness, and was even arrested before. And her opponent exposed pieces of her journey to distract you from his own weaknesses and flaws. Normally, the average person would be hurt, ashamed, and humiliated, not her. You see, those things she went through is what happened to her. It's not who she is. She's not a victim, but rather she is a victor. A candidate who had an honorable 24-year career, earned every rank available, worked in the trenches of the community all over this city, invested in our juveniles, advocated for victims, served with more than 20 community civic organizations all over our city, and yet her opponent says she has had a reckless career. The candidate who entered this race without being asked, convinced, prodded, or selected. The candidate who provided proof of residency to be eligible to even run for sheriff. The candidate who legally voted in the correct precinct. The candidate who provided tangible evidence to debunk her opponent's lies, and he doubled down on the lies and kept spreading them to all of the voters all over this city. The candidate that was honest, no lies, fear tactics, and divisive rhetoric to deceive you to get your vote. I've been transparent. I'm almost done, baby. The candidate who has never refused to speak to the media. Y'all remember, just one question. The candidate that has spoken directly to the media, shown up to forums, debates for all communities all over this city, because you matter. The candidate that has the most support across all demographics and party lines. The candidate that couldn't be bought, has not made any promises or alignments. The candidate who has remained steadfast on the issues that impact you the most. The candidate that has worked hard to earn your respect and your vote. The choice is yours to make. Choose a proven record of making our city safer. Choose a fighter to be on your side. For your family, for your neighborhood, for this city. We deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you all. It is great to have each and every one of you here. I forgot to introduce our timekeeper. His name is Keon, I hope I'm saying it right, Stringfield. He is a 9th grade student at Providence School. He's on the swim team, and he's also an inspiring writer. Please stand. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did we get another timekeeper? Okay. You want to stand and introduce yourself since I didn't get to meet you? All right. She's in Honor Star Foundation and plays baseball. Thank you. Thank you both. Outstanding young people. All right, it is time for the prepared questions. These are questions that the candidates each received, and we have 3 of them. And I would like to I'll start with you, Mr. Barr, for the first question, and it is concerning our city. Tell us what breaks your heart and what warms your heart.
That's a good question. You know, I just seen the questions today. I think you sent them yesterday, and I looked through my email, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it. But I was talking to my wife about it, and there's quite a few things that break your heart, but I think the homelessness, just today being downtown, and some places you have to step over people that are living in the streets. I had a man with me today. He lives at Harrison and First Street, and he lives with a friend. And we were talking about the homelessness because he was homeless for 2 years. He's recently moved in with his friend and is living at his house. But to see the folks that are laying on the street sleeping day in and day out, and I've seen the same ones when I go to city council meetings or something, that's sad. It's terrible, and we have to do something about the homelessness and help these folks. Good things that I see are communities like yourselves and communities that I've helped do, like, for example, food giveaways. If you look on my Facebook, you'll see there's what's called a prayer walk over in District 8. Every month I go to District 8 over off Moncrief, and I help do food giveaway and clean up the neighborhood. So when you see folks that do things like that and reach out to certain neighborhoods or folks who need something, it's refreshing to see. And I've enjoyed doing it, and keep it up, and that's what we got to keep more of to help the community. Thank you.
Wonderful. Same question for you, Ms. Burton. What breaks your heart about our city and what warms your heart?
So what breaks my heart is what I've been talking about and campaigning on for the last 18 months is the violent crime in our city and the great divide. Everywhere I go, I talk about we have two cities in one. And my opponent is saying that we're going in the right direction. And that just lets you know he's very detached and he doesn't have the pulse of this community. As a matter of fact, he doesn't have the pulse because he never shows up. We've had a lot of meetings. He's not showing up. So that's what breaks my heart. But what warms my heart is what has happened and transpired over the last 18 months. When I started thinking about getting in this race, people were saying, is Jacksonville ready for a woman? Is she too young? She's a Democrat. She's this, that, and the other. And I want you to know what you're going to be voting on is who is the most effective leader. And what I have seen over the last 18 months in this city is people come together. My message has been resonating. And people, they hear my heart, they hear the message. And at our core, we all want the same. We want a safer city to live in, to play in, and to work in. But most importantly, we want a sheriff that we can trust and a sheriff that's going to be for all. Thank you.
Holloway, and I would like to say we did invite Ms. Holloway's opponent to come and be a part of the forum tonight as well. So I thought I would just mention that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And ironically, my opponent is the same party as the future sheriff's party. I think that's a part of their strategy not to show up. He has commercials, but he won't show up to debates. I've also requested a debate, but notwithstanding any of that, what warms my heart about this city is the fact that we have 9 bridges. We can certainly bridge the gaps that appear in this community. What breaks my heart is not only in this country, but in this city, is that, we teach our children the Pledge of Allegiance, and we say, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we don't see justice for all, and we certainly see liberty only in certain instances. Moreover, I would like to say that I believe that we can bridge the gaps, and that's why the bridges warm my heart. We can bridge those gaps and make sure that we have equity for all citizens of not only Duval County, but in this country with the right leadership. Thank you.
Thank you all. Question number 2 is, how do you feel about negative campaign ads? Why or why have you not decided to use them in your campaign? And I am going to start with Ms. Burton.
Because I got the most. They spent millions of dollars trying to attack me. So I think that at the end of the day, in politics, you're going to have a level of negative ads. I think that goes with the territory. But I think that at some point, you cross the line. When you start going personal or in the gutter, or you begin to spew divisive rhetoric with an underlying racial tone, as far as I'm concerned. So the reason why I didn't is many reasons, because I'm a woman of faith, and I said I would not taint my testimony because God is good to me. But secondly, it's because of my parents. Look at my dad. He cried. Give him some tissue, y'all, right now. My parents, people that love me, but also because I have respect for the men and women in blue, but also for our community. I'm running to be the top cop. And it's important that members be able to trust their leader and have respect for their leader. So it was easy for me. As a matter of fact, when I met with my first consultants, I said, listen, I am a public servant, not a politician, and I understand that in politics, people say everybody got to go dirty, have to go negative. And I asked them, I said, I need to know before I sign on the dotted line, is this a deal breaker for you? Because it is for me. And I said, throughout this campaign, I will maintain who I am. And that's exactly what I've done, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Mr. Barr, same question. How do you feel about negative campaign ads? Why or why have you not decided to use them in your campaign?
Good question. I am against them. So I've followed politics forever. When you see, like guys I work with, they watch the football game at work at break, and they watch the baseball game. I watch politics. What I can't stand are politicians, and I don't care which party or which race it is. I can't stand the negative ads talking about the other person. I want to hear about you. And then I want her to tell me about her, or whatever the case is. I don't want you to tell me about somebody else. So I can't stand those negative ads. I saw negative ads, coming from my own party against other folks, not her race, but other race. My God, I got tons of them. I hate it. I want to see some stuff you want to see stuff about me. You don't need me to tell you about the other candidate. If you want to know about the other candidate, you'll look that candidate up, and you'll see good or bad about them. So I'm against negative ads, and I haven't done any, and bottom line, I'm against them.
Thank you. Ms. Holloway, talk to us about how you feel about negative ads and why you have not decided to use them in your campaign for Congress.
Thank you. I feel like, look, we know what Congress stands for, so we should run on not only qualifications, but the role of the position. I refuse to engage in negative campaigning. I have run before, and I've had reporters call me all the time to ask me to respond to certain issues versus different opponents. However, I have always refused because I realize that we should campaign and run our race based on the qualifications of the job.
All right. You all are all on the same page on that issue. That is a good thing. So the third question is, what lessons have you learned during this campaign? We're just a few days away from the election, so we're sure you've learned a lot. So Ms. Holloway, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I have run for Congress not once, but this is my third run. So I have learned a lot in each campaign, but I will say that what I have learned the most is that at the end of the day, all people want the same things. Everybody wants to be able to retire with security. Moreover, people want to know that they are safe in their homes when they go to bed at night, and they want to know that their children have an adequate education. I find that that's an overwhelming theme throughout each campaign. So I learned that at the end of the day, regardless of party, regardless of race, most people want the same things at the end of the day, and people want a fair living wage. And that's a resonating theme that I have discovered over the past 3 campaigns. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Burton, same question. What have you learned during your campaigning?
I've learned so much. When I looked at the question, I thought that I would share something from a personal, spiritual level, since we're in the church too. So I've been sharing my story for a very long time. My story is written in books, magazines. I've been on even national TV sharing my story because I've always wanted to help others and give others a voice, give people hope. But I've always been talking about resiliency. if I had to describe myself with one word, I always said it was resilient. And what I've learned on this journey is that what I've been saying to people for years is exactly what has gotten me through over the last 18 months. So as you can imagine, all the things that have been said, we've heard, we've felt, and I can tell you, God has had a hedge of protection around my heart, around my emotions, everything. And the people in my family, I just talk about my dad, it didn't dawn on me until a couple weeks ago. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I can hear him almost as if he was weeping. I said, listen, turn off the TV until the end of the campaign. And he said this, he said, daughter, you don't understand. You're my daughter, and it hurts me. But I had to tell my daddy how his daughter is built, you know? And so I said that to say, what I've learned on this journey is that when you believe in something and God has called you to do something and you are obedient, He will pave the way for you. And I'm so glad to say He's done that, and I am better for it, and I am prepared to be your next chair. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Barr, what lesson or lessons have you learned during your campaigning?
Let me lighten it up a little bit and say this. First of all, I've learned that my wife is tough because she's put up with me with this for almost a year. So I think she's wanted to kill me a time or two, but she's put up with it. I think what I've learned is people want the same thing in our city. They want safety. They want security. They want somewhere good to live. They want somebody with honesty. As I've been around in the community, and I can tell you I spent more time here on the east side than I've spent in anywhere else in my district, walking around, talking to folks. And I think that if you can be honest with people and just tell them how you really feel, and most people, when they hear me talk, you know, I ramble a little bit, but when I tell them how I feel and what I want to change and what I want to help try to do for them, I don't make any promises except promise to get things done. I think I've learned that that's important. If you tell a bunch of promises or you tell lies, I'm not implying any of these folks do, but if it's not the same. People want to hear honesty, and that's what I've learned. And just stay focused on wanting to help the community, and I think that's what we have to do. Whether you're running for sheriff, Congress, or city council level, you have to be honest with folks and just stay that course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for answering those questions that we sent to you in advance. Now I'd like to get on to a couple of more questions, and I would like to start with you, Ms. Holloway, and that is, what is the most significant issue facing our city, and how can you help address it?
Thank you for that question. I think the most significant issue facing our community right now is probably the affordable housing issue. You hear people from all walks of life complaining about the housing issue in this particular city. We see when we come up Union Street, you see the homeless people. But also there is a segment of society that people don't realize are also facing issues regarding affordable housing. I spoke with a woman who called me on yesterday. She is retired and her rent went up by $300. She has Social Security and she is on a fixed income. I bought my first house at 19, but you also have people who are graduating from college who cannot afford to buy a house. The median price for a home in Jacksonville right now is $325,000. The average person between the ages of 18 and 35 cannot afford to pay that for a home. So affordable housing, I believe, is the biggest issue that is plaguing the city right now. And how I can address that is in Washington, D.C., of course, as you know, we have a bicameral system, and within the United States House of Representatives, we have an appropriation for HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development. We need to make sure that there is enough funding coming back to the district so that we can afford more affordable housing, and I plan to bring back dollars to the district for more affordable housing.
All right, thank you. Now, I know, Mr. Barr, you answered this question last week, but if you'd like to expound on it tonight, please do so. And
So
that is the issue that's most significant facing our city.
And there's several things. The affordable housing is one of them also. As I'm down, especially south of the Trout River, and I talk to folks. I talked to a girl that lives, I think it was around 11th and Phoenix, and she was telling me her rent was like, it was $1,200 or $1,400 a month. And I'm like, how do you afford to pay it? You know, and does she pay her rent? Does she pay her light bill? Or does she buy her groceries? We've got to do something to work with that. Like I think I said last week, you can't control somebody's rent. You can't do that in Florida. But if we can work with the landlords or something, maybe on their taxes, I'm not sure exactly what council can do, but do something to bring their number down, to bring the rent down. So we have to do something, because we're going to rent people right out into the street eventually, because folks just can't keep affording, like went up $300. People can't keep affording to do that. So we have to do something about it. And I had also mentioned policing the communities. I feel strongly that we got to have safety in the communities. It's sad that, I don't know if you guys heard on the news last night, but Pastor DeVoe, which is at the church over on 21st Street, Grace Baptist, his son got killed last night. That's terrible, absolutely terrible. We have to do something about the crime. And I think that part of that would be the community policing that we spoke about last week. Get officers in the community, going door to door, knocking on doors, meeting people, introducing themselves, and build that trust and build that bond. I've heard Ms. Burton talk about something similar about it before, and build that trust with the police department. And that way, if there is a crime, you may not have stopped the crime, but you can catch the perpetrator. So those are a couple of things that I think we need to work on.
All right.
So hands down, violent crime. I have some mothers in here who have lost their kids to senseless violence. So violent crime is the number one concern to citizens all over our city. And it should be. Because every single day, violence touches all of us, whether we just turn on the TV. We see it, we hear it, and we feel it. And it's been going on for like this for too long. And it's worse. And it's unacceptable. That's why I've been saying it's time for change. Last year, after years of violent crime on the rise, our city, we finally saw a breakthrough. We saw roughly 4% reduction in crime. Under my leadership as a zone commander in the Arlington Beaches area, my officers and I delivered a record-breaking 16% reduction in crime. And I'll break that down for you. We saw 34% less gunfire, 33% less business burglaries, 32% less murders. Basically, we saved people's lives. We protected people's businesses, and we were intentional about bridging that gap between law enforcement and our community. And we'll be able to do that all around this city. How did I do it? I call it an integrated public safety model. And it's 4 pillars. It's 1, culture. We have to change the culture of the police department. That don't mean it's bad. That means it's good. We have 70% of the workforce have 7 years or less on the agency. They're younger, they're more innovative, and they're working with the latest technology, and they need a new type and style of leader who knows how to lead this new generation of officers. When you look at what I was able to do, you don't get a 16% reduction in crime if you have officers who don't respect their leader. You don't get a 16% reduction in crime if you don't have a leader, if the officers don't buy in to the vision of their leader. That's exactly what they did. So I changed the culture. I cultivated a culture of community policing. I gave them those tools. They're young. They're coming into this profession without a lot of life experiences. So we have to be intentional about developing our officers, making sure they're trained and held accountable. But then thirdly, we looked at our crime from a more comprehensive approach. The reason why we can't reduce crime is because we're too reactive. My opponent had 7 years over the violent crime unit. Former Sheriff Mike Williams gave him all the money he needed. He took police officers off the streets to create his unit, and they did good work, but they were ineffective in many ways because they were missing the community piece. But spent millions of dollars in overtime, millions of dollars in technology. Last year, I reduced crime by 16%. I didn't have more officers. We didn't have the technology. But we had a different approach. So we have to address our crime problem from a more comprehensive approach, more on the front end. We can't continue to be reactive. So the comprehensive approach is more education, communication. We have to develop better relationships, intervention, prevention, more solid relationships with our community stakeholders because JSO can't do it alone. But the other piece is enforcement. We have a criminal element in this city. And I don't know about you, but I'm pissed off. They're riding around this city as if it is the wild, wild west in broad daylight. It's time for us to have leadership. So the fourth pillar is cost. My opponent is saying he wants to raise your taxes. We're already struggling, coming off COVID. He wants to raise your taxes. We have to have more officers on the streets. And I want you to know I'm going to be a good steward of your money. And I won't ask for another dollar without your buy-in. But what we have to do to put more officers on the streets, because we need that right now, we have to look at this agency and do a staffing audit. We're too top-heavy. We are. And then we've created a lot of specialized units over the years. And some of them are needed, but the ones that are nice to have, they got to suit up and get back on the street so we can have more visibility and saturation. But also, we have sworn officers working around our agency doing administrative jobs. They got to suit up and get back on the streets. So that's how I'll do it. Thank you.
All right. You may as well stay right there because this next question that I have.
LJ, she said, stop showing off.
And it is, do you believe our criminal justice system disproportionately impacts certain communities? If so, what remedies would you put in place to make the system more just?
Right. I think that we all know that is a yes. I think that, number one, it's time for us to elect a new leader. Nothing happens unless you elect a leader who's going to acknowledge that does exist. And I think it goes back to leadership. It goes back to training. It goes back to the culture. So it's so many different things. That's a big question with so many different variables. But I think the first thing we have to do is have a sheriff who's going to be intentional about addressing those things from a law enforcement perspective. So that's how I answer that.
All right. Ms. Holloway? Sure, absolutely. So do you believe our criminal justice system disproportionately impacts certain communities? If so, what remedies would you put in place to make the system more just?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. I believe that there are more disparities in certain communities in the criminal justice system, in particular in this city. Many people don't know that 49% of the budget in Jacksonville goes towards our Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. However, as your future Congresswoman, what I plan to do is work in concert with the next sheriff to make sure that we are getting the federal dollars that the current administration sends back to Washington because they don't want to report. So not only will the taxpayers in the city save money, we will also be able to clean house and bring more money to our sheriff's office when we start having transparency and accountability. At present, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office does not receive federal funds because they don't want to don't want to report. When you receive the federal funds, you have to be in compliance to receive them. So our sheriff's office has decided to send that money back to Washington. I plan to work in concert with the elected sheriff to make sure that our criminal justice system is not only fair and equitable, but to make sure that we have neighborhood policing and that they have the funds and the tools in order to accomplish that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Barr, same question. I can repeat it if need be.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So that question is, do you believe our criminal justice system disproportionately impacts certain communities? If so, what remedies would you put in place as a city council person to make that system more just?
I do agree with both of them that I think it impacts certain communities more so than other communities. I think there's disparity. I don't know all the answers to it. That's definitely kind of a new question to me. I don't know the answers, but I believe that if we put money into community policing, again, I think that that will help out on some crime. But I think that some folks get in trouble when they, let me start over. Take, for instance, down here on the east side, and I'm saying that because I spoke with some guys who hang out up here on A. Philip Randolph. I go up there quite often, and I talk to guys down there. And what they want is more jobs. What I've been asked for is, hey, we need more jobs in our community. We have tons of work taking place right across the street over here in the DIA area. Let's get some work to folks that live here on the east side and other parts of our district. That will help prosperity financially. That will stop some crime that takes place. If some folks may get in trouble from stealing or whatever, give them a job. Let's help the community out. Other than that, I haven't heard that question, and I don't know exactly the answer. But again, I'll reach out to the community leaders. I'll reach out to the pastors and say, hey, do you guys got an idea what we can do here? And that's how I'm going to do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'd like to switch gears just a little bit. This is a different question, but it's for each of you. Should elected officials and government workers who engage the citizenry be held responsible for their personal social media posts? Why and why not? I'll start with you, Mr. Barr.
Sure, it's their post. I'm new to social media. If you look me up, you'll see something on Instagram, but be quite honest, it's only because it goes from Facebook over there. I don't even know how to get it back or do anything with it. Someone set it up for me. So
we feel you. We feel you.
So if you see it, it's not because I stuck it there, it went there. And so I'm an old man, I'm almost 58, and I've never been on social media in my life until December when I went down to the art walk, and everybody I asked, as a matter of fact, that's where I met Wayne Clark here, getting petitions signed. And every single person I talked to said, hey, what's your Facebook? What's your Instagram? I didn't have one. So I had to get somebody to show me how to set it up and do it. So my social media is very, very amateur. But whatever I put on it, like I even put something on it one time that was, it could almost be what we talked about a little while ago. Maybe kind of, it was true, it wasn't false, but maybe kind of slamming my candidate. This was months ago. And it was just a little while that I felt so bad about it, I took it back off because I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same garbage that I don't want to see, even though it was real. I don't want to see, but I took it back off. So it was my responsibility to take it back off. So yeah, I think that if whatever happens, if you've got somebody controlling your social media, well, shame on you. You need to have control of it and get it right. Thank you.
All right. Good answer. All right. Ms. Holloway, same question. Should elected officials and government workers who engage the citizenry be held responsible for their personal social media posts? Why or why not?
I do believe, just like I believe in separation of church and state, I also believe that persons who are elected are entitled to have a personal page and a personal life. So I don't believe that they should be held accountable because I have had a social media account since 2009, and certainly the views I shared in 2009 certainly may have changed by 2022. And I won't say, I think at the core, I am who I am. But I realize after having run for Congress 2 or 3 times and understanding more issues in depth, I don't think that someone should be held accountable for something they said 12 years ago. Absolutely not. I do believe that people evolve and opinions change. I think that I scrubbed my account, but you just never know. But at the end of the day, I do believe that humans err. And as humans, people oftentimes make mistakes. Just as Charles said, you know, he had a stream of consciousness or he was convicted and took the post down. So I do believe that you should give people an opportunity, one, to address any issues and respond accordingly.
All right. Ms. Burton, of course, recently we heard about a JSO officer and his offensive posts, allegedly. What are your thoughts on that question?
So I absolutely think that, the question was for elected officials as well, so I want to address that. So I think that when you are elected, you have a responsibility to your personal and professional posts to make sure that they're not immoral, unethical, or racial. So, and the same with our police officers, especially in law enforcement. So, absolutely to that. But I did want to touch on that last question about the disparities. Some of the things that we can do, because one of the hot topics was, I've been asked numerous times, was about the adult civil citation. So I'll tell you, as the sheriff, I would be interested in learning more about that. I've done a lot of research. Our state attorney and public defender have agreed that if we created that program, that they would support that. And I think there's a lot of tangible data out there in other law enforcement entities that are using that program. The adult civil citation is for first-time offenders for nonviolent, victimless crimes. So there's so many benefits to implementing that program. It's a cost savings. So when you look at what the cost is when we put people in jail, and over the years, historically, the jail has had an overcrowding issue. And at the end of the day, giving officers discretion to help not derail somebody's life. I think that's just the right thing to do. So, but if we do, I do believe that there has to be strong consequences when you create programs like that. But that's one of the things, many things that you can do to address the disparities.
All right. Thank you. So I'll switch gears just a little bit and ask this question, and I'll start with you, Mr. Barr. What is your position on the Second Amendment?
Well, I'm a strong believer in the Constitution, and I believe in the Second Amendment. I think that you shouldn't run around shooting guns in neighborhoods and shooting at people, but I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. But there's laws. You just can't walk around with a gun on your side. You can't just flagrantly go shooting guns, in communities or whatever. But generally speaking, yes, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment.
All right. Okay. Chief Burton?
I'm a cop. I am too. I have my guns, my husband and I, but I think it's important for those who are lawful gun owners to be responsible. Lock your guns up. But we need to focus on the illegal guns. These criminals that have these guns, we need to get them off the streets. And while I'm at this, I want you to know that every year we have roughly 4,000 burglaries to vehicles, and 2,000 of those vehicles are unsecured. And we find, about roughly 600 firearms are stolen from those guns, and every one will be used in a crime. Drugs, guns, drive the violent crime in our city. So, yes, to the Second Amendment. Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Holloway?
Absolutely. I do believe in the Second Amendment. As someone who has a law degree who understands the Second Amendment, not only do I believe that we have the right to bear arms, but we also should have a well-regulated militia, which is the second part of that sentence. Most people will just, recite the first part of that particular amendment and say the right to bear arms, but it also says that we should have a well-regulated militia. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for answering that question. This question is for Chief Burton. If elected, how do you plan to deal with the officers who are corrupt in the department, because we do not need another George Floyd here in Jacksonville? That was a question sent in for me.
Okay, so first I want to say that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is one of the best agencies in the country. We have the best training, technology, and people. So I think that some of the processes that we have in place, they work. We just need to make sure that individuals in this agency are implementing them. But it goes back to leadership, it goes back to culture, it goes back to accountability, all of those things. So training is important. So at the police academy, I think that we need to focus more on, so we have a policy now, a duty to intervene. I want to make sure that officers in this agency see that as a badge of honor instead of, not thinking that they're snitching. So I think that the training is crucial. More regular training. Over the years, we have really gotten away from hands-on, in-person training because we have all this technology and everything is online. So I think that we have to go back to more training, but also my staff, mid-management, all the way down to the supervisors, really modeling the behavior and showing these officers how to do this job. Again, 70% of the workforce have 7 years or less on this agency. So I think it's important, and this is the time, if we ever were going to change a culture of a police department, it is now. And I'm very hopeful because of what I was able to do in Zone 2. And I can tell you, last year we had a 16% reduction in crime. Not only that, we had the least amount of complaints in internal affairs. So leadership matters.
Absolutely. I want to remind everybody. Oh, I do have some questions. Thank you. And I want to remind you all to use this card and scan the QR code. We do have a few more minutes, and there it is, yeah. So scan that QR code. I have a question, and it's for you, Mr. Barr. If elected, what are your plans for the African American community? And this person says you have to live in the area to understand the need there. What are your comments about that? And answer that question, please.
Well, I don't live here on the east side, if that's what it means. I live up in the Oceanway area near the airport. But I think that working with the community is what we need to do. I've talked about that the whole time. Again, I've spent most of my time south of the Trout River, and of that area, I spent most of it, the bulk of that time, here on the east side talking to folks. So I think that you have to work with the community and with the community leaders. I had told you the other night, for example, I know that we have food deserts. Here on the east side is one of them. Over in District 8 is another one. A little bit of 9 and 10, from what I understand, is food deserts. I've worked with a guy, I thought he was VP. He's actually a district manager. He's got stores here and he's got stores in Texas. But with a grocery chain. I met with him last week. I met with him again Tuesday. He was at an event that I had last night, and he wants to work with me or work with whoever's city council to put stores in the predominantly African American communities that have food deserts. So those kind of things, is what I want to do to help. Again, I don't live here on the east side, for example, but I don't think that you have to live in the community to work with folks and to ask questions of what you need. Thank you.
All right. So I have one other question for you, Mr. Barr, and it is, how will you handle safety concerns as a city council person, should you be elected?
That's kind of a general question.
It is.
If we're talking about safety when it comes to violence and all, I think that the council, and I don't know exactly how they do it, but the council needs to work closely with the sheriff's office. If it means budgeting, I know that you guys go through budgeting. If it means work with them to get them more money or whatever it takes. Again, I'd mentioned the units that I called officer friendly or community policing. To get these units in the communities, to earn the trust of the community, so when there is crimes, like these violent crimes she's talking about, that folks will talk. When there's a violent crime that goes on and the policemen show up and nobody knows anything or sees anything because maybe there's no trust between the police and the citizenry. That's got to change. So if it means more money, and I know just dumping money and just dumping cops on the street isn't the answer, but getting some units for community policing is what I think will work, and I'll work to do that. Or more especially, work with the sheriff, whether it be her or her opponent, to ask them, what do you guys need to make it safe in the communities? Because that's the key. We've got to have some safe communities. These killings and these violent crimes have got to stop.
All right, thank you. And this is for you, Ms. Holloway. There was a lot of legislation that passed this past session. What would you like to see remain? What should be repealed repealed, that's correct. What should be repealed, and what would you like to introduce in terms of legislation should you be elected?
Thank you for that question. Of course, in the 117th Congress, there were lots of laws that were overturned. Of course, the one that is receiving the most press, of course, would be the fundamental right to privacy, which is the Roe v. Wade decision, well, of course, which is reversed by the Dobbs decision. Of course, Congress is the only legislative body that can codify Roe. Again, I'll say that Congress is the only legislative body that can codify Roe. So absolutely, as a woman, I think that a woman does have the right to choose what goes on with her body. But more importantly, I just would like to share that many people don't realize that HIPAA laws were born as a result of Roe v. Wade. So I'm sure that a lot of men in the audience would not like for people to have access to their medical records. So I do wholeheartedly believe in the fundamental right to privacy and believe that a woman's health care is between she, her physician, and her partner if she so chooses. The other laws that I am very passionate about, and which is why I think it's so very important that each and every person within the sound of my voice should not only vote but tell others to vote. Understand that we have an opportunity to turn this seat blue. In order to get voting rights passed, in order to make sure that Roe becomes a law of the land, we have to maintain control of the House and the Senate. So it's so very important that we don't lose seats. We know that the governor was malicious in drawing the congressional maps and disenfranchising African Americans in particular because he kept the Hispanic districts intact. So we know that it was intentional, and the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has not been renewed since 2003. So as a result, it's important to me to make sure that the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act is not only instituted, but also that we make sure that persons who are felons have their rights restored at the federal level. That's the thing that's most important, and I think that all Americans who believe in a democracy should have an opportunity to participate and vote. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. This one is for Chief Burton. How do you feel about keeping the same officers in the same zone to build relationships with the people they serve?
So the officers generally patrol in the areas that they want to. A lot of times we give them options, but it doesn't matter when an officer patrols. It doesn't matter what their race is. What matters is that each officer have a spirit of service. So I think for a long time, police officers, our role is to serve and protect. And we do a good job protecting because we make a lot of arrests, but we got to get back to service, and that goes back to cultivating a culture of community policing. So obviously we look at different areas and we put the necessary resources that's needed, but at the end of the day it goes back to having that spirit of service and making sure that every officer is maintaining professionalism and providing service to all communities, no matter where they work at.
All right, thank you. All right. So we'll do 2 more questions if that's okay, because I know the time is spent. But this one is for everyone, if you can quickly answer this. How are young people influencing your campaign, and how will they be a part of your circle of influence if elected? And I'll start with you, Ms. Holloway.
Thank you for that question. And that is the reason why I run, because I realize that children cannot be what they cannot see. And Charles, for those of us who grew up in Jacksonville, we call this area out east. And out east on the avenue, which was Florida Avenue before it became A. Philip Randolph, you saw an avenue that was filled with businesses. And so many of the people in this city who are leaders will tell you about the businesses that were on the east side, or out east, if you will. Our first women to be elected in Jacksonville, Florida, to the local and state level came from out east. You can clap for that. That's something we said. They came from out east. And again, as I stated, I am a 4th generation Jacksonvillian, and I want children to have hope and a future. A hopeless people are a voteless people. You hear people all the time talking about Generation Z, ages 18 to 35, who do not vote. They don't vote because they have no hope. And so it's important that we not only have those people engaged year-round all the time. If and when I'm elected, I plan to not only have a roundtable of young people, I also plan to take at least 25 with me to Washington so they can see up close and personal the process. Thank you for that question.
All right. Mr. Barr. Go ahead,
Repeat
Mr. Barr.
the question?
Yeah.
Repeat it again.
The question is, how are young people influencing your campaign, and how will they be a part of your circle of influence should you be elected?
Oh, let me also go ahead and say, somebody told me that before, out east. Forgive me if I didn't call it the right thing. You can't imagine how many times I've referred to north side and got chewed out over here on the east side, because in my mind it's north of the St. Johns River, and it means no insult. It's my ignorance, I guess. So I haven't had too many young people in my campaign. I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm not supported too much by my own party. It's me and a few people who help support me. We talked about that last week. But I have had a few, when I say young, not young like these teenagers, but I've had a few young in their 20s that have helped me a little bit out campaigning, knocking on doors, and I think it's great. I think it's great to see these 2 young kids here tonight. And I think I seen another young person walk in earlier. I thought I seen him. And I think it's great to come to these. I think kids need to get involved. Like I think you just said a minute ago, young people 18 to 25 or whatever that age group is, they're not involved. They need to get involved, because you know what? You're the next generation. We're going to be dead and gone here in a few decades at least, and you guys are going to take over. We need young folks to get involved, learn what the government's doing, study it, practice it, and be part of it.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Burton.
Thank you. Excuse my seat, please. So for those who know me, know that I'm always surrounded by young people. I've been an advocate for youth for many, many years. As a matter of fact, I was so proud to be recognized by the Secretary of the Department of Juvenile Justice last year for the work I've done for the last 15 years. So thank you. And my work that I've done as the Executive Director over the Police Athletic League, I continue that work. But a couple things I want to do. I was once the assistant chief over our community engagement unit, so a lot of our youth programming came from that unit. So when I get in, I do want to expand some of the programs that we have. We have a teen leadership program, a police explorer program, and then the PAL program. But also I'm looking at recruitment. How can we recruit these young people and make them become police officers? So currently, right now, we have a partnership with Ed Waters University. We have a 3-in-1 program, and what that is that college students that are majoring in criminal justice, they go to college for 3 years, and then that 4th year, they spend at the police academy. So when they graduate with their degree, they're graduating certified police officers. So I intend to expand that. Yes. And then offer that to the other colleges and universities. So I believe that, our young people are the future. So I'll be, and what better way to understand how to better serve them if we don't listen to them? So, yes.
Absolutely. It was a great question from the audience, so I appreciate that. Last question.
I'm sorry, I have to have an addendum to that. I believe that may have been submitted by one of my board members. I award scholarships to students who major in health or science and have awarded more than 40 scholarships. And I see my board member looking at me like, you answered that wrong. Perhaps she submitted it. But notwithstanding any of that, I also serve on the James Weldon Johnson YMCA Board of Directors. And I'm very proud to say that that community in that particular Y had not seen construction for more than 40 years. And I'm very proud to say that we added a teen center to the tune of $2.5 million. And that was not only groundbreaking in that the people in that community had not seen a crane or construction in 40 years, but the teens now have state-of-the-art equipment where they can continue to learn and grow.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Last question. I was going to go to Ms. Holloway first, but I'll go to Mr. Barr. Last question. How will you work to unify the city?
I think that you need to, let's say in city council, you need to reach across the aisle. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. You need to work with each other. When you look around our country and you see bickering, my God, it's every day. The right can't get along with the left and vice versa. That's got to stop. I think you need to reach across the aisle and come up with solutions. Quit worrying about party names or colors or any of that. I think you need to reach across the districts. Right. Even though I'm running in District 7, here on the, what is it, out east? Out east. Out east.
Very
and then
good.
Is the other called the Upper East?
No.
Out east and on the north side. And whether you're over on District 8 with Miss Pittman, you need to work together and come up with solutions, because us getting nothing done has got to stop. So I just believe that you have to reach across the aisle and work with each other. Don't worry about your self-interest or yourself, your nonprofits, forgot the word I'm looking for. Quit worrying about that and worry about the people who put you in office. You guys are the ones who we need to worry about, not our own personal things. And I just believe that we have to just, again, reach across the aisle, work with each other.
Very, very good. Ms. Holloway, how would you unify the state should you be elected?
Thank you for that question. Well, I am actually running for Congress to represent the people in Washington. Right. And the way I plan to unify the people in Washington is, one, to make sure that we, cross the aisle and compromise. That's what we do not see amongst the legislators that are now in Washington. I started my professional career on Capitol Hill, and I think before the Newt Gingrich years, you did see or hear congresspersons being referred to as statesmen. You no longer see statesmanship in Congress. You no longer see legislators willing to cross the aisle. And in order to remove the gridlock that we see that is based on partisanship, we have to make sure that we put the people first. That's why in the preamble to the Constitution we say, we the people. And so I think if legislators will put the people first, and we find that that is the common denominator, that we can unify. My campaign slogan is United We Win, and I wholeheartedly believe that united we win. Thank you for the question.
Absolutely.
So I think that first we need to elect a sheriff who's going to be bold and really have those tough decisions. One of the issues that come up all the time that people are afraid to talk about is the race issue. When I first started, that's my first interview, that was the question, do we have racial issues in Jacksonville? I said, not only in Jacksonville, but all over the country, right? So if you're not willing to acknowledge it, how can you address it? And I'll give you an example. After George Floyd happened, it rocked all of our worlds, and this administration didn't want to have those conversations. I went to the sheriff and I said, look, what are we going to do with the community? What are we going to do with the officers? We need to start having these conversations. So I took it upon myself to do what I've always done and lead. So over a 3-month period, I met with all of my police officers that work for me in Zone 2, roughly 170, and roughly 98% are white males. And I created a space for these officers to have this conversation. It was optional. I said, I want to talk to you as a black woman and a black woman who has raised 3 black sons. And at the end of the day, 100% of my police officers said, they asked me, Chief, why don't we have these conversations? So it just spoke volumes to me, and then we started going in the community having these conversations. So I think that is the first thing we have to do, is have leadership that's going to be bold to start having these conversations, because I think it's very important. You know, it's important for our officers to have more awareness, and so they can have the tools to be able to engage with our community, but also the community has a responsibility as well. So we got to start having those conversations just like them. And at the end of the day, if you look at the 2 campaigns, I have the most diverse support across all party lines, all demographics. So that's a sign of a leader who's able to unify. So that's what I intend to do as your sheriff.
Very good. All right, and that is the end of all of the questions. I want to thank you, Chief Burton. I want to thank you, Mr. Barr, and I want to thank you, Ms. Holloway. You all have been wonderful. Let's give them a hand, everybody. Thank you so much, and we're going to, before we turn it over to the pastor, I forgot to make a couple of acknowledgments, but Mr. Norman Brewer, who is running for District 11 in the spring, is here. Thank you for being here. I thought I saw Miss Jacoby Pitt. Oh, there she is. Hey, come on, stand up. Thank you so much. I forgot about that, moving so fast and being after 8 o'clock. But we also want to acknowledge Congresswoman Corrine Brown. Good evening. Good to have you. And I almost forgot, we need to have closing statements, you all. I am so sorry. So we'll start with you, Ms. Holloway.
Thank you. I am rising because not only is it time for change, we cannot keep doing the same thing expecting different results. My opponent is not in the room. He has been in politics since 1996. However, he will not show up for debate, nor will he put the issues that he stands for on his website or answer to the people. So people who vote for my opponent are voting for party. We cannot continue to have partisan politics. We need people who genuinely love the people and who are willing to serve the people. And that is why I say, for a better day, vote L.J. Holloway. Thank you for your time.
All right. Chief Burton?
Okay. That was less than 3 minutes. I'll claim her the rest of her time. No, I just... That's fine.
I have somewhere else to be. That's why I'm like...
Okay. I first want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. Thank you, Pastor, for opening up the church for us. This is one of the most important elections in decades, and we won't get this opportunity for years to come. I've been running on my reputation, my record, and my results. I've had a reputation of telling the truth and maintaining my integrity, never compromising my integrity. Not perfect, but I've had that reputation. My record for 24 years, everywhere I've worked in the police department, the people, the place, and the processes were successful. And as far as my results, I have proven results my entire career, being able to reduce crime, violent crime, property crime, but most importantly, bridging the gap between JSO and our community. We cannot afford to have a sheriff who's going to lead and govern from the lens of a political party or personal feelings. We need a sheriff who's going to govern and lead from the lens of the Constitution and by what's right, what's decent, fair, and just. I've been saying from day one, I'm not running against anybody. I've been running for you. My candidacy is not about prestige. Yes, I'm going to be the first woman. I'm the first woman to run for sheriff in Duval County. I'll be the first African-American sheriff, female sheriff in the state of Florida, and only 6th in the United States. But it's not about prestige. It's not about political party. Law enforcement has become overly politicized at a detriment of police departments across this country, even the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Look at the current sheriff intervening in this current election. It's shameful. When you call 911, you're not concerned about what party affiliation the officer's in. Are you asking for a Democrat, Republican, Independent? That's crazy, right? So it's not about prestige, political party, and it's not about power. How many of us are tired of abuse of power by our leaders? I certainly am. So it's not about prestige, political party, or power. It is about you, the people. I'm praying that you will get out and vote, get people out to vote. If we vote, we win. And I'll say this, a win for Lakeisha Burton here in Duval County is a win for all of us. Whether you black, white, Hispanic, LGBT, Mexican, I'll be a sheriff for all. Thank you. I love you, Daddy.
I'd like to thank you again, Pastor, for allowing us to be here tonight. Thank you, folks, for coming out. This is a great turnout, and it's so impressive to look out and see everyone out there. So I got a couple of things I want to talk about, and I'm not even sure if last week if we mentioned it, we had short time, but so I'm an electrician by trade. So that's what I do for a living. I work at Anheuser-Busch. I'm in maintenance. I do process programming, but by trade, I'm an electrician, and I believe in trades. Not everybody is cut out for colleges. Either they don't want to go, they can't afford to go, or maybe they don't know how to go. I was one of them. I didn't go. I went to apprenticeship school and learned how to be an electrician. With that said, I would love here in our district somewhere, and maybe there's some type of shop in schools. There used to be shop in school. I would love to see some workshop or like skill centers. I would love to see skill centers put in our district because we are a working class district. If you're a millionaire sitting here tonight, I'm not trying to insult you, but we as a whole in our district, as a whole, we're working class folks. I'm one. I get up 6-7 days a week and go to work. I would love to see skill centers to help our young people to get a skill, even if it's right out of school, to get a skill so that they can get a good job. All throughout our district, I'd love to see that. So that's something I just wanted to get out there because I don't think I did last week. I'd also like to say, and kind of touching base with what she said about her opponent. I mentioned it last week. Now I'm going to raise the number. This is the 8th event that I've been involved with like this, and my opponent only showed up to one. That was last week. I'm here for you guys. If you want me, I'll come see you. Last week after the forum, there were 4 or 5 people contacted me, either emailed me or messengered me on Facebook. And so one of them is a pastor right back there, and I had the great honor of visiting his church Sunday morning because he offered me to come there and visit with his congregation, and it was great. Another person contacted me and wanted to have a town hall meeting up on the north side, and I did. Now, he didn't show up, and the folks that he was going to get there didn't show up, but the folks that I invited and talked about, they did show up. But the point is, they wanted a town hall meeting to talk to me, and I was there. I was there to answer whatever questions that would have came up for an hour and a half. And that's what I pledged to do if I'm elected. I'm going to have these meetings throughout our district, something we currently don't have, and you're going to see me in your community often to listen to you. And again, if you need to call me before that, I'll be there. That's what I plan on doing. That's why I got in this race, to work for the people in this district and to get things done. I'm Charles Barr. Please vote for me. City Council District 7.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you all so much for your patience, and we'd also like to thank our virtual audience as well. We appreciate you all. Pastor McKee, thank you.
Thank you all again. Why don't we give all these candidates a great hand for their time, for their dedication to this moment, and to being present. Just want to reiterate, every person running for these offices were invited. They were invited to come. Those who chose to come came. Those who did not, did not. But we want to make sure that's absolutely clear. We are a church. We are faith leaders. We are operating from a nonpartisan lens. So everybody was invited to come. Again, thank you for your presence. Because we are concerned about the importance of voting, please make sure. Now, this is my pastoral privilege for a moment. Please make sure you vote. Make sure everybody in your family votes. Anybody catching this online, please make sure we have early voting wrapping up this week. The actual election day is Tuesday. Don't let the scare tactics of anybody stop you from going to vote. Exercise your sacred right and vote. Amen? Amen. 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 We're getting ready to leave here in just a moment. One more announcement. If you do have any questions about healthcare open enrollment, please head downstairs. Those questions will be answered. You can head out this way toward the elevators, right down that way. We want to make sure that you get some of your needs met before you leave the house of God tonight. Amen. Thank you so much to our moderator again. And we are dismissed. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you to these two young people again. Our OPs.